In today's video, I wanted to begin my adventure and go through the Fighters Guild storyline featured in the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered. A little over a year ago, I actually released a video of me discussing the main details and events for the questline. It was a little over an hour, straight to the point and easily digestible. However, with the release of the remaster, I've been eager to visit some of the storylines, and some viewers have been asking for a fully fleshed out Fighters Guild video. This would include all of the dialogue and a little bit more of my personal experiences as well as opinions on the story's events. Plus, with the new graphics, voiceovers, and combat style, I'm really curious to see what's different from the original. So, for my own sake, as well as for a select few commenters, I decided to go through the questline in a little more depth. If that's something that interests you, then sit back, relax, and let's enjoy a tale from the Elder Scrolls. The Fighters Guild is one of the 5 main joinable factions within Oblivion. It's among the easier ones to actually enlist in. It's not as popular as, say, the Dark Brotherhood or the Thieves Guild, but I will say it has its charms, and overall, the pacing of the story is pretty good, at least in my opinion. If this is your first time ever playing Oblivion with the release of the remaster, there's a chance you wouldn't have known how to actually sign up with them. Asking around for rumors in any city might net you some guild-related dialogue. Of course, in my case, the rumor is rampant when I'm not looking for it, and when I'm actively searching, it's nowhere to be found. All they really say though is that capable fighters should consider joining the guild if they're looking for work. Each major city, barring the capital and Kvatch, has a guild hall. Why the Imperial City doesn't have one is beyond me. If I had to guess, it's probably due to lore reasons, as there's less work for them there. Most contracts have members venturing off to nearby dungeons and out in the wilderness. However, it could have been a really neat opportunity to have an elaborate headquarters for the fighters, like the Mages Guild has for the Arcane University, and it also could have added more life and depth to the faction itself. In any case, there are only 3 cities that have the ability to actually add you to the guild registry.
Looking for adventure? The Fighters Guild is a good place to start. If you're looking to join up, you should speak with Velena Danton in Coral, Azan in Anvil, or Burzgrow Kosh in Cheydinhal.
Since I was already in Anvil, it's like I knew to come here first or something, I spoke with Azan about joining the faction.
What can I do for you? Looking for some work? If so, the Fighters Guild can always use able-bodied new members. The Fighters Guild is always looking for new members. If you've got a clean record and don't have a bounty on your head, we may be able to use you. Are you interested in joining? Fine. You are now an associate in the Fighters Guild. For contracts, speak either with me or with Burzgrow Kosh in Cheydinhal. Good luck to you. A contract for you? I think I've got something that suits your experience. Arvina Phyllis has some problem with rats in her house. Yes, rats. I'm sure she can explain it to you better than I. She lives here in Anvil. Go and talk to her. Good luck.
This starts the very first quest, or one of them, and is one that's such a classic to the Fighters Guild itself, a rat problem. Ever since I went through the Fighters Guild storyline in Morrowind, I've developed a new appreciation for this mission. Exterminator in the Elder Scrolls 3 is pretty similar to this one, but you could tell that Bethesda wanted to give it a unique spin. What's more, while this is the first quest I chose to start with, you could have easily gone and spoke with Burzgrow Kosh for a whole different start to your Fighters Guild journey. This idea of branching quest lines is something that's unique to the Mages Guild as well as this faction, yet both do it a little bit differently. Before speaking with Thalos, I always find it worth it to loot the local guild halls. Now that I'm a member, I have access to weapons, armor, and other items that can give me a good head start for the upcoming journey. I also have a free place to rest my head if I need to level up or regenerate my bars. When finished, I left the Anvil HQ and legged it down the street over to Arvena's house. Going on inside, I spoke with the distressed Dunmer.
You must be from the Fighters Guild. Good. I have a problem. It has to do with the rats in my basement. That's right. Rats. In my basement. And something has been killing them. It's horrible. My poor babies. You must do something. I don't know what I'd do without them. Their little pink noses, their scaly little tails. Oh, please get to the basement and find out what's happening.
Right off the bat, I noticed that they changed the voiceover for Thalos. The former voice actor did a crazy good job at making Arvena sound kooky, but I feel like the new one gives a more convincing and distressed performance. Descending to the basement, you'll spot a mountain lion hunting down Thalos' pet rats. At early levels, the lone lion isn't that tricky to take down. Its health drops rapidly, and even something as simple as a bound dagger does the trick. Once it's been defeated, your journal update will mention that it's probably getting in through a hole in the wall. I don't think I've ever actually went and investigated the hole from down in the basement, but I'm pretty sure it's something you can lay eyes on in the original too. Once things were wrapped up here, I returned to Thalos for the next steps.
Well, what have you found? Did you take care of my babies? What was going on down there? A mountain lion? In my basement? But how? Oh, that's not possible. But it happened. Oh, what if there are more? What if it wasn't alone? Where there's one, there will be more. Find Pinarus Inventius. He's a hunter and knows this area inside and out. He'll know what to do.
I know this is probably a really minor detail, but for this portion of the quest, I'm fairly certain I've always found Pinarus in his home. I don't recall ever seeing him beyond the city walls, let alone roaming around the streets of Anvil.
Pinarus Inventius, hunter, woodsman, and marksman at your service. Mountain lions? Here! Odd. If they're around, I can find them. Come with me. A hunt will do us good and maybe make that old nut feel better.
Walking with Inventius, now's probably a good time to briefly explain my character build. I'm playing as a high elf, took the mage as my birth sign, and I'm experimenting with a custom stealth mage class. I use destruction and conjuration for offense with an emphasis on bound weapons. At a low level, I'm relying heavily on the dagger. I sneak around dungeons, and when things undoubtedly go sour, I have restoration and light armor for defense. In my mind, the vision for the build was perfect, but I hit a lot of snags as time goes on. Eventually, Pinarus stops at a little nook and speaks with me.
If they're out here, they'll be in this area. I can't imagine there are more than 4 of them. Let's take care of this.
Literally walking into the lion's den, there are 4 beasts waiting for me and the hunter to stroll on in. Similar to Thalos' basement, one-on-one, these starving mountain lions are very manageable for low-level players. However, when they're all grouped up like this, they can prove to be quite the challenge. They hit hard, overwhelm you, and it takes a bit for all of their health bars to go down. Luckily, Pinarus is able to deal most of the damage, and if you play your cards right, he's able to tank most of the hits too.
I think that'll be all of them. Can't imagine more in this area. You can go tell Arvena this is all taken care of. Good hunting.
With the climax of the action taken care of, I returned to Thalos and informed her of the good news. She didn't take it as well as I would have hoped though.
You've got to take care of those mountain lions! You think you've gotten rid of them all? You do? Well, you haven't! There's one in my basement right now! Go get it!
History repeats itself and I'm sent back down to the depths of the home. Something I forgot about and recently discovered is that if you let the lion kill the rats, or you yourself decide to kill the vermin, it outright ends the quest as a failure. Not the biggest of deals in the grand scheme of things, but it's probably not also how you want your tenancy with the guild to start. Again, not much of a challenge with the beast, and there shouldn't be any more coming through the hole, at least for now.
Thank the gods you killed that thing! Oh, this is ridiculous. Someone's out to get me, to get my poor babies. I'll bet it's that Quillweave next door. She's the one. She's never liked me or my sweet little pets. I know it's her. I've even seen her sneaking around in back of my house at night. She thinks she's so smart. She and all the other women. I'll show her. I want you to keep an eye on her. Find out what she's up to.
Interestingly, even though each stage of this quest is straightforward and it's an introduction to the guild, I would almost say that this is one of the longest missions for the faction. There are just so many steps to it, and a lot of them can't be skipped. Meanwhile, most of the other ones are go here, do this, come back. Upon finding Quillweave, I asked her about the mountain lions.
My name's Quillweave. I've had some success selling stories about the lives of the lower and criminal classes. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not sure what you're accusing me of, but don't do it without any proof.
Of course, that probably wasn't going to work. However, waiting until midnight, Quillweave, who was still very much in public, dropped low to the ground and suspiciously moved towards Thalos' home. I love it when you're supposed to tail someone who's sneaking and the game doesn't care if they see you or not. It ruins the whole idea of it, but it's also pretty funny to watch. After witnessing the Argonian place some meat outside of Arvena's exposed basement, I confronted her once more.
Yes? What can I do for you? You what? Well, I'm sure I don't know what you're talking about. I would never go skulking about. Fine, you've got me. I figured if I left some rotten meat outside, the nasty little things would come out, and the guards would take care of them. Mountain lions? In her basement? I just wanted to lure her vermin outside. I didn't mean to hurt anyone, except the rats. Please, don't tell her. And if you can keep this our little secret, I can make it worth your while. There's a bit about acrobatics I can teach you. Give it some thought.
The end phase of this quest is pretty free, and the player can choose how they want things wrapped up. Tell the truth and set Arvena against Quillweave, or cover for the Argonian and keep her deeds under wraps. Exploring both, I first started with ratting out Weave.
So, did you follow her? She's behind it, isn't she? Tell me what you found out! I knew it! That swit! Oh, I'll get her. You just wait. Must have taken some fast talking to get her to confess. Maybe I can teach you a little bit more about how to talk to people. And of course, here's the payment for the contract. Thank you.
With this outcome, Thalos handed me level-dependent gold, in my case only 100, and boosted my speechcraft by 1 point. Reverting back, I now chose to cover for Quill.
She didn't, huh? But you've taken care of the problem, and I suppose that's what counts. Thanks for that. Here's your payment.
Thalos still pays me for my work, and now I can go and tell Weave that Arvena doesn't know.
So, you didn't sell me out. I appreciate that. Well, I said I'd make it worth your while. So let me teach you a little something. You've got to be light on your feet to make it around here, and that's something I'm good at. Maybe you can be too. Take care.
With this option, my acrobatics skill increases as opposed to speechcraft. Honestly, at lower levels, it really doesn't matter all that much which option you choose, as both skills can be leveled by practical means anyways. Also, even by choosing to tell on Quill, there doesn't seem to be any repercussions for the Argonian, and Thalos never takes her revenge. In any case, like I said before, this mission is probably one of the more thorough ones that the Fighters Guild offers to the player. It's more than mindless violence and a simple fetch quest. With that, thus ends the quest, A Rat Problem. With the adventure only beginning, I returned to the hall and increased my overall level to 3. 2 more and I'm good for a raise in terms of reward payouts. For now, I know it doesn't seem like it with what I spent my virtue points on, but I'm mostly throwing them into agility and intelligence. However, in order to get better use out of my blade skill, I should start splashing over into strength a bit. When ready, I ascended to the top floor of the hall and spoke again with Azan.
I'll need someone who's at least an apprentice for this job. Maybe you're ready for advancement? You've done well so far. I hereby promote you to apprentice. Good luck. Looking for more work, eh? Good. Got a contract for you. I'd like you to go talk to Norbert Lels, here in Anvil. He runs Lels Quality Merchandise here in Anvil. He's been having problems with break-ins, though, and he's hired us to put a stop to it.
Something that's really different between Morrowind and Oblivion is the guild promotion mechanic. In Morrowind, the stewards won't force you into a promotion, and you can go through a good chunk of the contracts at a low rank. However, when you get blocked from progressing onwards due to being too low of a rank, it's not as easy to get that promotion, exactly as how it is in Oblivion. Your major skills and correlating attributes need to be a certain level, or else there's nothing else for you. I wonder why Bethesda took that away in Oblivion. I'm assuming for accessibility. No matter the build, players can freely join whichever faction they wanted, but who really knows? In any case, Lel's quality merchandise is out on the docks, and heading on inside, I spoke with the proprietor.
Greetings! Welcome to Lel's Quality Merchandise. We have a wide range of goods to suit your needs. Oh, and perhaps you saw the sign outside? A slight mistake, you know. Bit of bad luck there. So, what can I do for you? I've lost a great deal of merchandise over the last few months. I keep replacing it, but they keep stealing it. New locks on the doors be damned. They always come at night after I've gone to bed. Maybe a mage transports them inside. You can just stay in the shop overnight. Good luck. I'm going to wait at the flowing bowl until this mess is settled. I know I can trust you to keep the place safe.
I've always thought that if you wanted an easy score for the Thieves Guild, doing this quest sets you up perfectly. Norbert leaves the shop, and you can take whatever items you want without having to worry about getting caught. I will say though, I've never encountered Mirabelle Monet in this store before, and she doesn't seem like she wants to leave. For a thief's sake, the security is a problem. However, for what was to come, she was the unsung hero. Waiting past 11 PM, the three men spawn in and skulk around the shop. After a little bit, they catch on as to what's happening here and arm themselves. Normally, for this fight, especially at a lower level, I've always had trouble. And you know what? I still found it a bit tricky, but Mirabelle Monet was insistent on staying in the shop overnight too. She actually came to my aid for the battle, making it a 2v3. With the addition of a conjured skeleton, the playing field was even. Inevitably though, things got hairy, so I decided to move the fight outside. Getting ready for a jog over to the guards, I was surprised to see that no one followed me. Worried that they slaughtered Monet, I went on back inside, and it turns out she was holding her ground just fine. After killing the Bosmer, together we worked on and took out the Dunmer, ending the siege of Lel's quality merchandise. Mirabelle deserves the reward and fame more than I do, but unfortunately for her, the game isn't that advanced yet. With the job wrapped up, I went next door to the Flowing Bowl and informed Norbert of our success.
Were you able to take care of my problem with break-ins? You've gotten them? Wonderful. But their names are familiar to me. All of those men have worked for me. Amazing. I even trusted them to open up the shop in the mornings. I can't imagine what turned them to a life of crime. Sad. Well, here's your payment.
I've always loved the detail that the thieves were all previous employees of Norbert. I've never been able to tell if they robbed him because it was an easy score and pre-planned, or if it was based on revenge for poor working conditions. I've always assumed the latter, but could be either or. With that, thus ends the quest, The Unfortunate Shopkeeper. Returning to Azan, he told me that he had nothing left to give me right now.
I don't have anything for anyone in your rank. Check with Burrs Grokash in Shadenhall. He might have something.
I'm still not quite used to the new NPC models. Some are sort of close to their original appearance in Oblivion, while others are a far cry off. Azan is a character who looks just completely different to their counterpart, and it's pretty staggering. Switching gears, I fast traveled over to the city of Shadenhall and sought out Burrs Grokash at the Guildhall. In my experience, Burrs can be really difficult to locate at times because his schedule has him wandering all over the city, and often there's no quest marker pointing to him.
You here looking for work, meat? Maybe you want a contract? I suppose I've got something for you. We need a weapons shipment delivered to Desolate Mine. That's your job.
A simple yet not so sweet delivery. Desolate Mine is a short walk northwest of the city. Something I'll get into in just a bit is that there's also a way to fail this quest. It's a little more obvious than the previous quests, but still not something you'd expect on your first try. Outside of the mine is where you get familiarized with the antagonists of this mission, goblins. Heading on inside of the cave and down the first little stretch, I laid eyes on my stranded guildmates.
You must be the reinforcement from the guild. Good. I hope you brought weapons for us. Horrible creatures. And they've made this mine too dangerous for the workers. We're going to have to get rid of them. You've made it, and just in time. We've got trouble with goblins here. I'll take the bow. You give the weapons to my other 2 men.
For this portion, I've always enjoyed giving the elf and the orc their unfavored weapons, but I want them to live, so I rolled with their requests.
Excellent! I long to sink a blade into some goblin flesh. A blade? Fantastic! Let us take the fight to these vile creatures.
Good. I need a weapon. I'm looking forward to bashing some skulls in. A hammer. Excellent. Good for bashing in puny goblin skulls.
Once the weapons were handed out, I received the journal update, and the 4 of us began to roll through the mines. I never really thought much on why these guild members came to the cave unarmed. If they were specifically sent here, it's pretty dumb of them to show up without any arms. However, if this was a scene that they stumbled onto and had been keeping the goblins at bay with their bare fists, then I highly respect it. Before I mentioned there was a way to fail the quest, and I also mentioned that my guildmates could die during the fighting. Well, putting 2 and 2 together, you're going to have to do some babysitting for this one. To also add some spice to your efforts, the trio often splits up and 1 or more will run ahead into the dungeon, aggroing more than a handful of goblins. The UESP recommends to stay with Rihanna, as the bow renders her fairly defenseless. For my first attempt, we cleared out the mines, but the Redguard told me that Elidor died somewhere in the tunnels. This didn't fail the quest, but it would have lessened my reward and put a stain on my imaginary record. So, reverting back, I made it a point to beam ahead with whomever decided to be a hero. In this case, it was Elidor again, but soon after, Rihanna showed up to the party and Brago Barg was nowhere to be found. Abandoning my post, I legged it to the other side of the mine and caught up to the orc. He seemed to be holding his ground just fine though, and shortly thereafter, the final goblin was slain.
Well, they're all taken care of now. Good work there, soldier. Get back to Grokash and get your payment.
Before leaving, I did some quick looting as there's easy gold and a plethora of containers. If the guild's only going to pay me pennies for my work, I gotta make ends meet some other way. Again, the quest isn't that tricky, and the dungeon crawl isn't challenging. It's just a matter of keeping everyone alive if you want that full reward. If you don't care though, it's not like you get expelled from the guild, so there's not much harm in letting natural selection take its course. Once done, I returned to Cheydinhal and reported back to Burrs.
Haven't you taken care of that weapons shipment yet? Those weapons won't deliver themselves. You got the weapons there and cleared the mine with no casualties. Better than I expected from you. Here's your reward and a little bonus.
With that, thus ends the quest, the Desolate Mine. Ready for more work, I followed up with Burrs.
Looks like it's time for a promotion. Due to your performance, I name you Journeyman of the Fighters Guild. You're needed in Coral. Report to Velena Danton. She's got some duties for you to take care of.
It's now time to be formally introduced to the Guildmaster, Velena Danton. Although you don't interact with her a whole lot, I find her role in the story to be very impactful, and knowing how future events unfold, it just makes me feel sad for her character. But that's something we'll get into later in the story.
Greetings. I see you've been keeping yourself busy. This is good. I believe it's time for you to perform some duties for your guild. We are a brotherhood, a family. What affects one of us affects us all. Fighting, drunkenness, dereliction of duty are not tolerated. I would like you to speak with Modrin Orion. He will assign you any duties that are currently pending. Good luck to you.
Now we get introduced to Modrin, one of my favorite NPCs in the entire game.
What do you want? I suppose you've come looking for duties, huh? Duties for you. Fine. I'll speak slowly so you can keep up. I want you to contact Maglier. He's one of your Fighters Guild brothers, but he's defaulted on a contract. We can't allow that. Makes us all look bad. He didn't finish out a contract in Skingrad. Suppose I shouldn't be surprised. He's raw like you. Go and find out what's wrong with him.
Obviously, without getting too heavy into spoilers, if such a thing even exists anymore with the game, contracts coming from Modron tend to affect the overall storyline, while work that comes from Azan or Burz tend to follow their own plots. In my opinion, both are equally as interesting, as more often than not, the missions are varied and have you exploring different avenues of Cyrodiil. Arriving in Skingrad and making my way into the Westweald Inn, we get introduced to another beloved character in the questline, Maglier.
What is it, brother? They send you to find me? Defaulted? I suppose so. I'm not paid enough to do the job. I was supposed to find Brennus Astus's journal. That was my job. They said it was in Fallen Rock Cave. You ever been in there? Didn't think so. I'm not going back. Not for that kind of money. If you care that much, you go find it. The contract's yours. It's not worth it for what the guild is paying. I've got a family to think about.
I was wondering if they were going to make changes to both Modron and Maglier's voice acting, but I'm honestly glad they didn't. Craig Setchler gave such an amazing performance, as did so many of the other original voice actors, and it would have been a shame to see it get removed from the remake. Fallen Rock Cave is a brief walk northwest of the city. Upon going inside, you'll see how it got its name. The cave consists mostly of skeletons. Unfortunately for me, they don't have many natural weaknesses, so my fire spells weren't critting. However, they're fairly weak opponents to begin with, at least for the first couple of levels, so the crawl really wasn't much of an issue. There are a couple of different tunnels and chambers to explore here, but getting to the room with the journal is actually a pretty easy feat. Brennus's book is a loose collection of entries on some of the creatures found in Cyrodiil. Really, the only interesting part here, at least to me, is that farmers called Landreg billies. This was quoted by the UESP as being a reference to the development team, as during production for Oblivion, they nicknamed Landreg billies. This was in order to keep its existence under wraps. A fun, neat little fact for you there, if you didn't already know it, of course. In any case, after snagging the journal, I did a little more exploration, cleared out the rest of the dungeon, looted some containers, and then took my leave. From here, I traveled back to the Westweald Inn and informed Maglier that he was a failure.
You're still around. I've told you why I defaulted on the contract. Not too much else to be said about it. Do what you must. You found it, huh? Good work, I guess. Well, take it back to Orin then. He can pay you on the contract. Tell him what you want about me.
At this point, you have the option of covering for the Bosmer, or straight up telling him he's getting thrown under the bus.
Thanks. I'm not trying to shirk my duty, but it used to be 2 or 3 men would be on this. I like the guild, but I've got a family to consider.
Right now, my decision probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and ultimately, what you end up doing doesn't have that much of an impact on the storyline. However, the last time I went through the Fighters Guild, I told the truth about Maglier and Fallen Rock Cave. So this time, I wanted to switch things up.
Why are you talking to me? Shouldn't you be finding Maglier? You've got the journal. Good. So, what happened in Skingrad? He didn't. This doesn't sit well with me. Not well at all. Still, the job got done. Let's hope your friend Maglier has learned a lesson here.
This mission acts as a great introductory to several minor and major characters in the story. With that, thus ends the quest, Unfinished Business. Returning to Modron, I asked if there was anything else he needed from me.
Back again, huh? What is it? Back for more work, are you? Good. Some of our boys are causing trouble in Leowin. Looks bad for the guild. Some of your brothers have been getting rowdy at the local tavern. I've got no problem with cutting loose, but I don't like it when we all look bad. You're looking for Relian, Vantus Prelius, and Dubak Groshok. I haven't had any trouble with them before, so find out what's going on.
For some reason, I always forget the timeline for a lot of these quests. I assumed Drunk and Disorderly was later into the storyline, but then I remembered why it's closer to the beginning and what it ends up introducing to the player. Before traveling to Leyawiin, I made a quick pit stop at the Coral Mages Guild Hall. I wanted to stay ahead of the curve and upgrade some spells. I was now level 4, yet still using some basic destruction and conjuration magic. I ended up wasting my money on the Bound War Axe, but making a wise investment in Flashbolt. I'll explain later on those. Finally, heading down to Leyawiin, I began asking around about my guildmates.
There's some folks causing trouble, that's for sure. Head over to the Five Claws Lodge. You'll see.
Doing so, I laid eyes on the intoxicated Relian, Vantis, and Dubakro shack. Beside them was a flip table and chairs, a detail that was also in the original game, but not one I ever noticed until now.
You'll keep your nose out of this if you know what's good for you. Trouble? Trouble, you're damn right. But it's not us, friend. The real trouble's with the Blackwood Company. They're what's causing trouble. Mercenaries is what they are. And they've hung up a shingle here in Leyawiin. Vantis can tell you more.
Virtuous also added in a sway to their body movements, which totally adds to their drunken appearance. It's a small detail on the outside, but for me, goes a long way.
It's not wise to interrupt us in the middle of our discussion. I don't think so. I'll tell you what real trouble is. It's trying to pay my debtors when there's no work. It's my wife taking in wash to buy food. That's been the state of things since the Blackwood Company began moving in. I spit on them. Mercenaries sent by the Emperor to reclaim territory in Black Marsh. When they failed, they came back and set up shop. They've been undercutting us on contracts ever since, and they've no qualms about accepting jobs no guild member would be caught dead doing. A brilliant idea. Orion only sends his best these days. Tell you what, you go find us some paying work and we'll happily go about it.
Your Fighters Guild, get them out of here! Jobs around here? Don't know that I trust you enough to recommend you to anyone.
Greasing Witse-Dutse's wheels a bit, I tried again.
Jobs for the Fighters Guild. Try Margart. If she's not at home or at the Five Claws, she's probably out looking for alchemical ingredients.
It's during this quest that we get introduced to a mysterious faction called the Blackwood Company. All we know for now is that they're taking all of the contracts, the good and the ugly, and at a fraction of the price the Fighters Guild would have done them for. We'll hear more about them later though.
My name is Margart. Professionally, I'm a trade consultant. I offer advanced mercantile training, by the way. But my real passion is alchemy. I love brewing up new and interesting potions, just for fun. It's a pity my busy consulting and training schedule leaves me little time for gathering ingredients. And heavens forfend that my husband Itar devote a few minutes from his all-consuming hobby stirring up trouble between Khajiits and Argonians to help me find ingredients. I suppose I've got something I could use the guild's help with. I need ogre teeth and minotaur horn for my alchemy experiments. They're tough to get, but I prefer fresh, and I'll pay well. And I just don't trust those Blackwood Company folks to find them. Well, I'm not sure about you either. Tell you what, if you bring me back 5 portions of ectoplasm, I'll give my business to the guild. That's my offer.
At low levels, 5 samples of ectoplasm sound kind of like a nightmare. If you don't have much in the way of magical attacks, don't know which dungeon to go to, and don't want to spend your own money at ingredient shops, I've got just the place for you to visit. For starters, probably the most convenient spot is Leyawiin's own Chapel Undercroft. A spectral undead spawn in there as early as level 1. However, I personally like to go to the Anvil docks and quickly run through the quest, the Ghost Ship of Anvil. This one can be given to the player at any time. It's brief, there are exactly 5 spectral sailors, meaning 5 samples of ectoplasm, there's plenty of minor treasures and chests to loot, and if you're struggling with the fight, you can bring the wraiths outside and simply have the town of Anvil deal with it. In the end too, you get the leveled, enchanted weapon, Red Wave. If your character is proficient with blades, it's perfect. If not, you can sell it for some coin. This is also where I tested out my Bound War Axe spell. Of course, it was much worse than the dagger, given my blunt skill. I honestly have no clue what I was thinking. I guess I wanted some weapon diversity, but this was just setting me back even more. Now, a common issue I've been encountering with the remake is that the wraiths have a hard time exiting the ship. I think it's because they get hard stopped in the doorways due to their bulky frames. If this happens, I suggest exiting the ship, resetting with potions, and then rushing back in for the fight. At the very least, it won't take you that long to get back to the wraiths, and you can resume your work. Once I acquired all 5 samples of ectoplasm, I returned to Leowyn and presented them to Margart.
Have you found me ectoplasm? Well, you've got the ectoplasm. Seems you Fighters Guild types can do a job when you put your mind to it. Tell your men I'll pay them for minotaur horns and ogre teeth. The Fighters Guild will be my sole supplier. I look forward to doing more business.
With the Nord willing to work with the Fighters Guild, I rushed back to the Five Claws Lodge and told the men the good news.
I've told you what we need. Until we've work, we'll stay here. Find ingredients from our guard, huh? Works for me. I'll let the other men know. Appreciate your help, friend. And Orion should be happy.
I could be wrong, but if I recall correctly, in the original game, Vantis, Relian, and Shaq run off as soon as they hear the word. In the remake, they feel the need to finish their drink, which I found kind of funny. In any case, now that my guildmates are going to have food on their table again, I returned to Orion and Coral and reported my success.
I'm looking for results from you. What have you found out? The Blackwood Company has taken that much of a foothold in Leowyn. Those sons of... Never mind. You've done your job. Here's your payment for it.
I've always enjoyed this mission because it's where the player first hears about the Blackwood Company, a faction that takes the guild by storm and creeps into the main story. With that, thus ends the quest, Drunk and Disorderly. Before leaving, I checked to see if Orion had any more work for me.
You've done well. Because of your efforts, you have achieved the rank of Swordsman of the Fighters Guild. I don't have anything for you right now. Speak with Azan or Grokash. Get some more seasoning, and maybe I'll have something. Or perhaps you're ready for advancement.
Being cast back into the Fighters Guild rat race, I decided to go see what Azan had in store for me first.
Greetings. Looking for some more work, are you? Good to see you're working hard. I've got some more thieves for you to deal with in Anvil. There have been a number of thefts in the area, and witnesses believe the thieves are holed up nearby. Check around and see what you can learn. I'm not sure the numbers you'll be dealing with, so I'm sending you with another new recruit, Maglier. I believe you two have already met.
Look who returned to the scene. My good old wood elf friend.
Oh, it's you. Looks like we're working together. Sounds like we need to ask around Anvil for any clues. Figures we'd get a mission without any real direction. I'll follow you.
This is one of the few missions where the game gifts you a temporary follower. But since he's essential to the storyline, Maglier can get tossed around like a hot potato and it wouldn't really matter. Meaning that there's no way to fail this quest.
I don't think I know you well enough to tell you that.
Greasing the guard's wheels a bit, I tried again.
Can't say I know anything myself, but I heard that Newheim the Portly had some things stolen, and he's been asking around about it. Ask him.
Approaching Newheim's home, I waited until he was ready to start his day, and then asked him about the thieves.
Hail, what can Newheim the Portly do for you? Aye, I know about those scum. Rotten bastards robbed me blind, they did. Stole a family heirloom. Bunch of Bosmer, if you can believe it. No offense to your friend, of course. Last I heard, they were holed up in Hirota Cave, not too far from here. Took my flagon, they did. Passed down to me from my father Rolf, and from his father Torvald. It's a wondrous cup. Keeps ale cold and sweet. Been drinking from a lousy wooden tankard since. It's just not the same. If you can find it, you'd have the gratitude of Newheim the Portly.
From Anvil's gates, Hirota Cave is approximately 160 steps north-northwest. I personally enjoy the addition of the distance tracker to the compass. I haven't seen much discourse online surrounding it, which is good to see. I like not having to frequently open the map in order to check how far along I am into the trek. This allows me to enjoy the journey more and take in all of those sweet Unreal Engine 5 views. As mentioned by Newheim, Crota Cave is jam-packed with a bunch of Bosmer. There are 8 named thieves in total, and they all vary in class: sharpshooters, battle mages, nightblades, and hunters. This was the first quest that I actually had some difficulty with. Since a lot of these wood elves specialize in running away, they tend to leash their nearby allies and have them join in on the fight. This can add up to 3 or 4 enemies at once, and even though Maglier tries his best, the 2 of us alone are no match. It was also during this portion where I really started to see my spells weaken. My bound dagger wasn't doing nearly as much damage as it used to, and even Flashbolt was struggling to kill my opponents. After receiving my first death, I knew I had to go about this dungeon crawl more carefully. Gone were the days of bull rushing my opponents and tanking hits. The next attempt went a lot smoother though. Maglier and I were slow, meticulous, and methodical. I tried my best to get behind the enemy, closing off their escape, while my companion took them head on. Eventually though, it got to the point where Maglier was nothing more than a practice dummy. He'd get knocked unconscious, rise back up, and then fall back down. That pretty much took him out of the race, but at that point, there were only a couple thieves left. Once all of the Bosmer were taken care of, I went to go look for Newheim's flagon. This portion is actually its own little side quest within the Den of Thieves mission. It's something that you can easily miss if you forget about it, or if you didn't know that it was its own thing. Once the wood elves were defeated and the flagon was secured, I did a little more looting, and then returned to Newheim in Anvil.
Ah, you've got it. Thank the gods. Finally, my mead will stay cold and won't taste like goblin piss. Take these, and my thanks.
As a reward for this potion, I received 3 bottles of Newheim's special brew. These fortify strength and personality for 10 points for 60 seconds, as well as restore 10 points of fatigue. With that part wrapped up, I then went and reported back to Azan.
So have you taken care of those thieves yet? Cleared them out, did you? Good work, you two. I see big things for you with the guild. Here's your payment.
Other than getting to work with my good friend Maglier, this quest showed me that I need to step up my game if I'm going to progress through the storyline. With that, thus ends the quest, Den of Thieves. Checking in with Azan, he didn't have anything else for me to do right now. So, I was sent off to Cheydinhal and reported to Burzgrokash. Like mentioned before, I almost always have a difficult time finding the guy due to his busy schedule. However, this one was on me as the orc was simply lounging around in the Fighters Guild basement.
I've got another contract for you, meat. I assume you won't embarrass yourself. It's from Bienna Amelion at the Water's Edge settlement. She needs something retrieved from her ancestral tomb. Try not to muck it up.
This is the quest where the player is introduced to the Water's Edge settlement. It has a small part to play in the overall story, but those who know the plot also know just how impactful it's going to be. On the way to the village, I ended up running into Vantis and the gang hunting around for samples. They weren't slaying ogres or minotaurs, but they were keeping themselves busy. Finally, I arrived at the settlement and sought out Bien.
Hello, you must be from the Fighters Guild. I'm glad you're here. I need your help to repay a debt. I'm afraid so. My father had a bit of an issue with gambling. I'm afraid he built up a rather large debt. Now that he's gone, the debt is mine. Gone. Dragged from our house in the night. To pay the debt, I'd like to sell the sword and armor of my grandfather, or I might be next. A great deal, over 1,000 septims. My father was quite a gambler. Quite a bad gambler. They were buried with my grandfather in the family tomb. The sword and cuirass were enchanted and should cover my debt. Please, get them for me. Not far, in my family's ancestral tomb. Here, I can mark it on your map. Please, return them to me so I can pay off my father's debts.
You might have noticed that there was an option to pay off the Amelion debt right then and there. That obviously comes from your own pocket and runs you around 1,000 gold. The reason why this is an option is because the game is offering you a chance to keep the unique cuirass and sword. It also pretty much skips the meat of this quest entirely. After paying Bien, you can simply return to Burz and cash in on your efforts. You don't actually need to go and collect the items. However, I'd recommend at least venturing into the Amelion tomb and seeing the loot for yourself before you make a judgment call. You'll be presented with the choice again once you've retrieved her grandfather's gear and have returned to Bien. The dungeon pretty much consists of all undead enemies. In my case, I battled against mostly zombies and a handful of skeletons. This made my trek really simple as I was able to two-shot most of the monsters. The final stretch of the tomb is guarded by a leveled spirit. In my case, it was nothing more than a lowly ghost, and a few flashbolts took it out no problem. Placed on one of the stone coffins were the cuirass and longsword of Brusef Amelion. The rest of Brusef's gear is also in the tomb, but to be honest, I completely missed them and frankly forgot about their existence. All Bien needs for this quest are the cuirass and sword, and those are the only enchanted pieces. The cuirass offers a 6% frost shield on self, while the sword deals 5 points of frost damage. Another round of honesty, I didn't know that the armor was light. So, you're gonna see me hand over the gear to her, but just know that after this quest, I'm gonna revert back, grab the rest of the set, pay her out, and keep everything for myself. At this point, it's an upgrade for my character, the armor looks nice, and I can't stand looking at the diaper part of the chain armor.
Hello again. Have you had any luck finding the sword and armor? You found them! Fantastic! I can't tell you what this means to me. Thank you. Thank you so much. Hopefully, I'll be able to sell these for enough to pay my debt. You're a lifesaver.
With the debt taken care of, I then reported my success back to Burz.
You need to finish out the contract with Bienna Amelion in Water's Edge. What's the status? Got a sword and armor for her, huh? Not bad work, meat. Here's your payment for the contract.
Because I'm level 5, I finally received a pay raise for my efforts. Now I'm able to rake in a whopping 200 gold per contract. At this point in the story, I've gotten acquainted with the guild and my superiors. I've learned that not everything is all sunshine and rainbows though, as work is limited due to the Blackwood Company. I'm not quite sure who they are yet though, and exactly what their goal is. I've met Maglier, who's currently unhappy with the way things are being run. What comes next is a big turning point in my Fighters Guild career, as well as in the storyline.